Human beings have always sought the answers to the great mysteries of life. Why are we here? Who or what controls our destiny? How does life work? What is the future? There is archaeological evidence that the need to know and profound spiritual research are universal human traits, and that some form of divination has been used since ancient times to support this quest. Many cultures, including Chinese, Mayan, Mesopotamian, and Indian, looked at the sky and the heavenly bodies, stars, planets, constellations, eclipses, and comets, not only to tell the time and understand the seasons, but also for signs of trouble or to decipher the divine will. Others paid particular attention to terrestrial omens such as animal migration, weather, forms of thrown sticks, bones, amulets, or rocks. African tribes used the bones in divination rituals for thousands of years. Chinese Taoists read patterns on turtle shells, which have evolved into the hexagrams of the I Ching. Viking rune stones have been consulted. Roman shamans observed the entrails of slaughtered animals and grains of hens pecked messages, electromancy. Other cultures have turned to the interior, like the Australian Aborigines with their dream time, or hallucinogenic plants used for vision quests, such as the Mazatec Indians of Mexico, who use Salvia divinorum for spiritual rituals and divination. There are also many passages of the Old Testament that document Yahweh instructions for using a sacred set of dice called Urim and Thummim to make decisions. While various forms of divination have been used in all societies, the widespread use of sophisticated systems of divination in all categories of people is very recent development. Dissemination of divination systems has depended on oral transmission, which in time, without writing, was largely the preserve of the rulers, leaders, official soothsayers, priests, sages, prophets, and shamans. Although the belief in magic was almost universal until and throughout the Middle Ages, including primitive divination of folk magic, knowledge of the systems of divinations and tarot, researcher Bob O'Neill called learned magic, could not be propagated until the invention of printing. The Chinese invented paper more than 2,000 years ago, and in 1045, a printer named Bi Shang had created the first mobile primitive type, which was used to increase the production of reading material. His method was used to reproduce the oldest book of wisdom, I Ching, which is also the ancient divination system and the most revered in the world. Johann Gutenberg's invention of printing in the 1450s led to the printing of books in Europe and reproduction of card games, including tarot cards. Literacy has increased over ancient text translations and knowledge of divination systems. Today, people around the world can experiment with all kinds of divination systems, including those from other cultures. There are 5 in particular that are rooted in history and are widely used in the world today: astrology, numerology, I Ching, tarot, and runes. Because they have stood the test of time and each incorporates a sufficiently complex and balanced set of archetypes, I refer to these 5 divination as the conventional systems of the world. Given the traditional systems of divination, distances of the world have had to travel through time and space, not to mention the intense persecution endured by their practitioners in Western society for hundreds of years. It's a small miracle that they are still with us. Although divination systems arise from the collective unconscious, totalitarian governments and fundamentalist religions seem to consider the profound ideas that can stimulate divination as a vague threat to a social order based on wealth, status, and power. In their fear, supporters of the status quo do not realize that higher aspirations never threaten the lower ones. Authentic divination systems transmitted by our ancestors are our sacred heritage. From a practical point of view, their ability to provide fresh guidance through the changes of our lives and the world is our collective good fortune. They help us to meet our primary need to better understand life and our place in the universe. Their usefulness has allowed astrology, numerology, I Ching, runes, and tarot to not only survive, but to thrive in the face of all odds. Strange and mysterious history of the Ouija board. In February 1891, the first few advertisements started appearing in papers. Ouija, the wonderful talking board, boomed a Pittsburgh toy and novelty shop, describing a magical device that answered questions about the past, present, and future with marvelous accuracy, and promised never-failing amusement and recreation. A link between the known and unknown, the material and immaterial. Another advertisement in a New York newspaper declared it interesting and mysterious, and testified as proven at patent office. Price $1.50. This mysterious talking board was basically what's sold in board game aisles today. A flat board with the letters of the alphabet arrayed in 2 semicircles above the numbers 0 through 9. The words yes and no in the uppermost corners. Goodbye at the bottom, accompanied by a planchette, a teardrop-shaped device, usually with a small window in the body, used to maneuver about the board. The idea was that 2 or more people would sit around the board, place their fingertips on the planchette, pose a question, and watch, dumbfounded, as the planchette moved from letter to letter, spelling out the answers seemingly of its own accord. The biggest difference is in the materials. The board is now usually cardboard rather than wood, and its planchette is plastic. Contrary to popular belief, Ouija is not a combination of the French and German words for yes. It was a medium who supplied the now instantly recognizable handle. Sitting around the table, a group asked the board what they should call it. The name Ouija came through, and when they asked what that meant, the board replied, "Good luck." Eerie and cryptic. Though truth in advertising is hard to come by, especially in products from the 19th century, the Ouija board was interesting and mysterious. It actually had been proven to work at the patent office before its patent was allowed to proceed, and today Even psychologists believe that it may offer a link between the known and the unknown. The board's instant and now, more than 120 years later, prolonged success showed that it had tapped into a weird place in American culture. It was marketed as both mystical oracle and as family entertainment, fun with an element of otherworldly excitement. The real history of the Ouija board is just about as mysterious as how the game works. No one really knows anything about its origins. For such an iconic thing that strikes both fear and wonder in American culture, how can no one know where it came from? The Ouija board, in fact, came straight out of the American 19th century obsession with spiritualism, the belief that the dead are able to communicate with the living. Spiritualism, which had been around for years in Europe, hit America hard in 1848 with the sudden prominence of the Fox sisters of upstate New York. They claimed to receive messages from spirits who rapped on the walls in answer to questions, recreating this feat of channeling in parlors across the state, aided by the stories about the celebrity sisters and other spiritualists in the new national press. Spiritualism reached millions of adherents at its peak in the second half of the 19th century. Spiritualism worked for Americans. It was compatible with Christian dogma, meaning one could hold a seance on Saturday night and have no qualms about going to church the next day. It was an acceptable, even wholesome activity to contact spirits at seances through automatic writing or table-turning parties in which participants would place their hands on a small table and watch it begin to shake and rattle while they all declared that they weren't moving it. The movement also offered solace in an era when the average lifespan was less than 50. Women died in childbirth, children died of disease, and men died in war. Even Mary Todd Lincoln, wife of the venerable president, conducted seances in the White House after their 11-year-old son died of a fever in 1862. During the Civil War, spiritualism gained adherents in droves, people desperate to connect with loved ones who'd gone away to war and never come home. Communicating with the dead was common. It wasn't seen as bizarre or weird. It's hard to imagine that now. We look at that and think, why are you opening the gates of hell? But opening the gates of hell wasn't on anyone's mind when they started the Kennard Novelty Company, the first producers of the Ouija board. In fact, they were mostly looking to open Americans' wallets. As spiritualism had grown in American culture, so too did frustration with how long it took to get any meaningful messages out of the spirits. Calling out the alphabet and waiting for a knock at the right letter, for example, was deeply boring. After all, rapid communication with breathing humans at far distances was a possibility. The telegraph had been around for decades. Why shouldn't spirits be easy to reach? People were desperate for methods of communication that would be quicker. And while several entrepreneurs realized that, it was the Kennard Novelty Company that really nailed it. Early in 1891, Kennard and Maupin acquired the rights to the first U.S. talking board patent. However, even before the Victorian craze of mysticism, similar talking boards had been in use much longer, the origins dating back centuries in China. In fact, some ancient Dowsing scriptures are thought to be derived from automatic planchette writing or spirit writing. Parker Brothers acquired the patent in 1966. In the 1940s, companies like Haskellite Manufacturing Corporation, Giftcraft, and Lee stepped into the void, producing the Egyptian-themed Haskell Mystic Board and Mystic Trays, the Swami, and Lee's Magic Marvel. Parker Brothers happened to be located in Salem, Massachusetts, home to the famous Salem witch trials, when it took over the manufacture of the Ouija board, coining the tagline, "It's just a game, isn't it?" For collectors, the game keeps getting better. Boards bought 10 years ago have tripled in price. It's a fun part of our history when mystics and seances were all the rage. I see it as a rebellious fad of the 1800s. Today I will be showing you an original deck of Gothic Victorian oracle cards. This is a handmade deck designed by me and available only through my shop. They come in a black satin bag, and they are inspired by the Victorian era. It is a deck of 24 cards, and they are used for divination, to tap into a deeper subconscious wisdom in order to answer questions about the past, the present, or the future. Each card has an image inspired by the Gothic Victorian era, and the images have symbolic meaning. In its modern usage, the word oracle is used to describe either a prophet inspired by spiritual forces, or to describe a particular prophecy. In ancient Greece, the oracle was the place where these divinely inspired prophecies of the future were passed down to mortals. Usually these prophecies were given in response to questions, but sometimes they flowed out randomly from the priest or priestess, acting as an intermediary. The images on these cards are meant to inspire these symbolic, ancient, and deeper wisdom. The most famous oracle was that of Apollo at Delphi, discovered as a fissure in the side of Mount Parnassus, emitting a gas that would cause seizures among the goats that grazed nearby. The convulsions and wild ravings of a goat herd, who was also affected, were interpreted by the locals as divine inspiration, and the priesthood moved in rapidly to take advantage of the unusual situation. Thankfully, these days, we have a bit more convenient way to get in touch with these subliminal, subconscious messages. Along with the deck will come a description of each of the symbolic meanings of the cards. Although the oracle will receive their own messages and wisdom that come from themselves, their own history, and their own experiences, knowledge, and wisdom. Today, I'm going to give a quick demonstration on using a dowsing board and pendulum. This is a handmade pendulum with a sandstone and a pentagram. And this is a basic dowsing board with an upright pentagram to attract positive spirits and help connect with the spirit world. It's made of wood and hand painted. It's an example of some of the dowsing boards that are available in our shop. They're all an original design and handmade, as are the pendulums. So, just to begin, I'm just going to hold the pendulum over the center of the board and ask a question of the spirit world. And it is giving me a yes. Very clear and quick response. So that is good news. That is the answer I was looking for. So today I will talk about the practice of scrying, which is using a black mirror to receive visions. Here are some scrying mirrors which are currently available in our shop. Each of them are handmade. So I will talk a little bit about the process of scrying or seeing into darkness. The black scrying mirror is a powerful psychic tool. It can bring the user hidden knowledge and clairvoyant ability, and can act as a portal to other planes of existence. Scrying is the ancient art of clairvoyance, achieved by concentrating on an object, usually one with a reflective surface, until visions appear. The use of the black mirror is one of the best methods of achieving the state of mind required for entering trance and for scrying work. It not only acts as a focal point for visualization, but can become a doorway into the astral plane. It allows communication with higher realms and the subconscious. The ways in which the scrying mirror can be used are to contact spirit guides, to access knowledge, for healing and self-improvement, as a magical transmitter and receiver, for divining the past, present, and future, as a portal to the astral plane, for shamanic journeying, for ritual invocation and evocation, to improve visualization skills. Generally, scry using the mirror at night, preferably during the full or new moon, depending on the situation. The mirror can be used at any time, but tends to work better at these points. The rite of scrying. Extinguish all light sources except the candle or moonlight. Allow nothing to reflect in the mirror surface. It should appear as a dark tunnel or window. You can use one candle behind the mirror or one on each side of it. Before starting, always create a sacred space to work in. Cast a circle of protection or visualize the area surrounded by white light and protection from false or misleading influences. Call your guides and guardians to protect the work. You can drink mugwort tea and burn mugworts or sage as you scry. Sit comfortably in front of the mirror. Close your eyes, ground and center, clearing your mind of all thoughts but your purpose. When you are ready, open your physical eyes and gaze into the mirror. Remain relaxed and do not hesitate to blink when necessary. Relax the focus of your eyes but remain alert. After a while, the surface of the mirror will begin to change and fade. A dark mist will appear. Your inner eyes will now open, and the journey into the mirror begins. Remember that the inner eye sees inside the mind through the magical imagination. Most people, when scrying, do not see the images appear with the physical eyes on the mirror surface, but see within the mirror and in the mind's eye. The mirror acts as a focal point, a gateway within. When you have completed your journey or work you set out to do, begin to the return of your body and ordinary senses. Breathe fully and deeply and remain still until you feel you have completely returned. Now close your eyes and remember all you saw and felt during the scrying journey. Review your entire experience mentally. Write it all down immediately in a journal or book of shadows.